I've always been like intrigued by couples that are really connected to each other. Um, and I feel like the more people are aware of the potential of really healthy connections, the more that they can invite that into their own life. Because I just see that there are a lot of people who are, they don't really aim for something really, really big because they don't even know that it exists. So I kind of want to just to bring more awareness to that.
It's true. If we don't have an example of it, it's hard to outpicture it for ourselves. We can't dream it.
Yeah. Yeah, especially if you haven't experienced any kind of love or even like a small portion of it, just to have an idea of what it really is. So I guess I'll just begin by asking you guys to both just tell me who you are, like your name, what you do, where you're from, just so people have an idea of who they're hearing.
Right.
Do you want to go first, dear?
Sure. Yeah, sure. Okay, so my name's Rebecca Couch, and we live in Schaumburg, Ontario. I originally grew up in the States, but I've been living in Canada for 40 years as of next spring. So I'm way more Canadian. I do have dual citizenship, but my reverence, in living here in Canada is a patriot in Canada, which is really nice.
Nice.
Yeah, so I came from the other side. So I was born in Australia, lived in Australia for the first 40 years, I guess, of my life. And how I came to Canada was through our story of how we met and our connection, and how I ended up here, being in Schomberg, Ontario, with Rebecca, doing the work we do together. And that's a whole another story, is our meeting and the synchronistic events that happened there. But we came together here. I've been here 22 years now. So um, when we came together, we co-founded Heartlight, Living from the Heart, which is what we do. It's our home, it's our business, it's our beingness. As far as what we do is helping people understand who they are and what it is and what it means to live from the heart. So, and how to come from that place. So we incorporate that in a lot of our work and our workshops and private sessions, and um, that kind of thing is how we've evolved over the last 22 years of being together. Yeah.
So in
Amazing.
a way, our coming together is exemplary in our work, because we can use that example as we share with people. But the journeys that we were
Yeah.
both on individually, and how it is that we came to meet, and then as a result of meeting, we set up. We're really teammates in our commitment, or in our service to help others find magic too, because everyone's magic, and life is magic, and relationships are part of that magic. But you have to leave that, and have to want to have the courage to tap into your own magic in order to find it. So our jobs are to inspire
Yeah.
others
And
to
what,
do the same.
just quickly, what we found is through our greatest challenges in our previous lives before coming together, through our greatest challenges, which we can talk about at another time, were that presented us with our great opportunities that actually um, enabled us to come together to do the work we're here to do. But to do that, we went through a lot of challenges and lessons and learning and letting go previously. But that's the beauty of understanding the journey.
Wow. Yeah, you guys definitely sound like you're connected in so many other ways.
Oh yeah.
Um, that you did touch on like so many other things that I want to get into, like shared goals and how you guys met. So maybe we can start with that. You can kind of go into like, how did you guys really meet? What brought you guys together? It's a big question.
It is a big question, because it has to do with our lives, really, for 40 years of our lives that happened before we met. because, you know, we met as mature adults, but we'd already had life experience. We'd already had marriage relationships. We'd already, you know, had already lived independently. So we came together as adults, which is really a beautiful way, because I think, you know, when you're younger, you don't know yourself yet. You know, and it takes lifetimes to get to know yourself. So it was nice to come together when we were already in more of an expressed, mature individual state, but we had to go on long journeys to get to that point.
Yeah.
Yeah, so we were being prepared, unbeknownst to both of us, for us to come together. And so we actually, from opposite sides of the planet, and I was living in Sydney in Australia at the time, born in Adelaide, but I'd moved to Sydney, been there for 4 years. And if you draw a line from Sydney through basically the center of the planet, if you went through the center of the planet and came out the other side, you'd
Wow.
about pop out in Toronto. So
Wow.
the polar opposite.
I love that you know that visually.
Yeah. We haven't calculated
Yeah,
mathematically, but you know,
but
it's pretty much
it's pretty
that.
close.
That's really cool. That's really
So
cool.
we were ready. We'd done a lot of work, which on ourselves, and had done a lot of prep work, and we met in Mount Shasta, a place called Mount Shasta, a beautiful mystical mountain in Northern California, where went to from Sydney. It's a spiritual conference of about 1,300 people from all around the world, and I went there with 5 of my colleagues from Australia, and Rebecca ended up going there with one of her friends, another couple actually, and the short version is out of 1,300 people, I end up sitting directly behind Rebecca, and at some point, one of my mates was with me, ended up getting a painting and was showing me as he was coming back to a seat, and Rebecca happened to see it and just said, "Oh, I bought that painting," and then turned around and we connected and spoke, and that
Wow.
was instantaneous
It was
almost.
the first break in the conference.
The
Yeah,
conference.
Wow.
That was our first connection. There was other things that happened, but we can leave for another time. And there was just that instant connection, and that was it. I never went home from that trip that was supposed to be a month. I was
Wow.
just met Rebecca. We both went back to San Francisco because she happened to be going back there for 4 days. Then she came back to Toronto. I went on to Sedona, Arizona for 2 weeks, and then came up to visit Rebecca for a couple of days before I was going back, and never went back because
Oh my gosh.
but that's
he
the very
stayed.
brief version. The long version is quite extraordinary.
Yeah,
Okay.
my friend said, you know, a lot of people bring home a T-shirt from a conference. We brought home the guy and the T-shirt. Yeah,
That's way better than a t-shirt.
yeah, way better. Yeah.
Oh my gosh. Yeah, I can't wait to hear the long version. I guess we'll leave that for another day.
Well, suffice it to say, there were really, really intricate patterns of synchronicity. Like anytime something well, we can say that about every aspect of our lives, really. But, you know, when you really stop to think about what it takes in order for you to have met someone special, for you to have a really magical experience, or for you to be on holiday in that moment and intersect with that person in that cafe and have this cool conversation. I mean, you know, a whole lifetime of synchronicity has to happen. And because we're interested in watching synchronicity, we were well aware of the patterns that happened before we met and that brought us together. And then, of course, our lives since then have been part of that.
Wow.
And
Wow.
really, everyone's lives are like that. Maybe they just don't notice them as often. And what we're saying is there's magic in noticing.
Magic and the key thing
Wow.
for me was, and that's what I was learning in my spiritual journey back in Australia at the time, was learning to trust and understand and listen to my higher self, your soul aspect, and that's what I was doing. And it was that part of me that directed me towards Rebecca to say, okay, you are meant to be together, so this is what you need to do. And it was this intuitive guidance that came to me that led me to and it was the same for Rebecca. That's why it's such a long but fascinating story that
Yeah.
we were brought together, but we had to be ready, we had to be in alignment, and we had to listen, pay
Mhm.
attention to the soul part of ourselves who knows exactly why we're here and what we're here to do.
Mhm.
And
Yeah.
And another important piece I'll say, and this is also part of a longer conversation, but we have to become that which is that that we are us, that we desire. In other words, we're often looking for another one to complete us. And that's not actually how it works. We must complete ourselves. And so that's part of the power of, my saying we were more mature adults when we met, because we had already done the work of fulfilling ourself unto ourselves as much as we possibly could. And while we desired a partner, while we knew there was, we wanted to share a life with someone, we had fulfilled ourselves enough in our own independence that we weren't looking for another to complete us, which is often the mistake. So one of the things is, each of us had made physical lists of the attributes of our ideal partner. And when we first met, we actually were able to share aspects of those lists. We didn't have our lists with us in California, but we had them in our heads. And we realized as we shared the list that we were
each other's list.
We were each other's list.
Wow.
But the really key piece is that when you make your list of all the attributes of things that you want and you desire in a partner, you must become each aspect of the list, so that you're not looking for someone else to be financially responsible, or someone else to be funny, or someone else to be youthful and playful, or someone else to, be wise. You're making your list of all the attributes, then you're becoming every single attribute. And then the law of attraction begins to work, because you're emanating all of the aspects of that which you seek. And the law of attraction, which is a universal law, brings like unto itself. So
do you think that if people do desire quality or characteristics in someone that they don't have themselves, that it's unlikely to be a good match? Is that, or is it possible that sometimes people might have characteristics or qualities that you don't have and still match? Or
I would say yes, but absolutely. But it's like that needs to be the icing part, the cake needs to be solid and have universal value, similar values, have similar approaches to life, similar philosophies, similar, even similar things that you enjoy.
Interests,
similar interests, because life is complicated enough. The journey of life, is we're here on earth to learn, and that journey is challenging enough without being in partnership with somebody that you continually have to come to compromise with over and over and over and over again. One thing, but it's different to have your cake and then just come to compromise with the details, with the fun part, with the where do you want to go on vacation conversations, not about core values and about deeper truths.
But it's not like someone might be super funny and you're not as funny, and like they can still be funnier than you.
Oh my gosh,
sure. Look,
yes.
You always attract, every relationship serves a purpose, whether it's a disaster or not, serves a purpose. And if you're not funny, or you're a bit heavy and on yourself, then sometimes you can attract someone in that can help you, show you a lighter way of being. And that doesn't mean that relationship's going to be forever and ever, but there's a purpose and a reason for every relationship we have, even outside a romantic basis. So, often we attract people that will help us learn, and will always actually learn and grow about ourselves. So that's the gift in relationship. But until you get to a point of your own inner knowing and understanding of who you are and where you are and your values, when you get to that place, you attract a person that is on a similar resonance, let's say, or wave. And if we still have issues to work on, then we'll attract someone in that's going to trigger those issues and help us work through them. But mostly people don't understand that and get caught up in the blame game, and then it just blows everything apart. I mean, when we came together, we are, I said to her, it's like, oh, you're the female version of me. Just recognize that in her. So of course that's the case, but in any instance, when you know who you are, when you really understand who you are and understand some of these spiritual principles, then you get to be aware and understand why or who it is that you've attracted in your life and how they can help you. It's always about evolution and growth, no matter how trying or traumatic a relationship or how good it is always, even in our level, there's still times we're still learning from each other, and that doesn't stop. But when you know who you are, you're able to then look at outside yourself and see what is being presented to you and through the other person by what triggers you. It's all about what triggers you.
Okay.
Relationships, whether it's our family or partners, we get triggered, and it's like, okay, what's the trigger? Where's that coming from? It's not just them being nasty to me, although they might be. It's like, well, why have I attracted that behavior in my life, and what is it triggering in me that I need to look?
What is it teaching me?
What's it teaching me?
Yeah. But in other words, people who are on the same frequency aren't constantly battling with, what am I being taught today? Or because you're constantly, you don't need that compromise because you're constantly on the same wavelength.
I think maybe that's the difference between having a spiritual perspective on life and not, or having a conscious awareness that you're here to learn and grow. And we find our happiness by our own work, our own commitment to that. And that shows up in every aspect of our lives. I think, as I said before, too many are looking for another to complete them. Whereas, my advice would be to work on your relationship with yourself first. And when you're in deep relationship with yourself, which to take, again, that's not an easy thing to do or say, really. But it's when you're in that place of commitment in your life, then everything that happens to you is teaching you, and then nothing is lost. And as you continue to build on that part of your life, then you're naturally going to attract the right people at the right time in your growth to teach you. And it's only going to evolve. When you're conscious about it, it's only going to get better and better and better, because you'll have boundaries. You'll know that, another person's values don't line up with you in the same way. And there are ways to deal with that, or to represent yourself, or to have boundaries, or to not continue a relationship because it's not honoring you.
So when you say like work on yourself, if let's say you're in a relationship and you come across some type of disagreement, is it better to kind of look into yourself and ask yourself what you need to change? Or is it like, can you approach the person and say, I don't like this? Like, what would you do in that? Knowing what you know now, what would you do in that situation? Or is that a sign that the person isn't right?
Well, it can be that, but in a lot of instances, it's about learning in all relationship. It's a learning about to represent yourself, to speak your truth at all times. So in other words, if I do something or say something, Rebecca, or vice versa, that triggers something in me, for whatever reason, it might be, I didn't like that's the way I was treated when I was young. So obviously I've still got an issue with that subject or that topic that's triggered something. So I might need to speak up and say, you know what, when you say something like that, it doesn't feel good. It makes me feel, instead of getting mad at her and yelling, it's like, you know what, when you say that, do you realize that that's what it's doing to me? And that's helping the other person understand, what they've said is just from their experience, and without even thinking and not meaning to do anything. And then I've taken it as a whatever.
What about trying to not change someone, but trying to compromise with someone?
Well, that's an interesting question. First of all, anybody out there that wants to take on a project by thinking they can change the other person, forget about it.
It's completely futile.
You can't. And It's not our job to change anybody else. It's not, because if you go into that, and we've seen it time and time again with a lot of our clients, where women in particular will like a guy and they know they're not perfect, but they think, I'll be able to change them. And you can't. You can change yourself, but you cannot change another person. Do you compromise? There's certain compromise, but it should not be compromising your values it might be compromising, the little things.
Behavior or
Yeah,
something.
yeah.
Yeah.
So maybe that's a definition too of a spiritual relationship, is that we always look at ourselves first. So we'll have a conflict, we'll have a disagreement or words. The first thing we each do is go and check in within ourselves and
Right.
sort it out within ourselves. And then the most important thing is communication.
And if
So
it is a behavior that you do want to ask if the person can change, that's okay to speak your truth and say that. It's not like you're not looking into yourself. You're just
Yeah.
voicing your own truth.
Yeah, you bring it to their awareness. I mean, I know with my programming and my upbringing, because that's where it all comes from, upbringing and the way my father was. Although I've chosen to be different to my father, I certainly witnessed and saw him and experienced him with being very judgmental and very critical and what have you. So that is within me, even though I'm not like that normally. It is still inside of me, and that can come out at times. And even when it does, I realize at the moment, I say, "Oh, that's my dad." I've given Rebecca a judgmental look, or the things that he used to do to us. It can come out subconsciously, and then I can recognize it, or Rebecca will say, "Well, that's your father," and I go, "Oh yeah, that's not the behavior I want to put forward." So then, through that awareness, I just make sure that I'm aware of that whenever I'm communicating moving forward. So that's still up to me. She can't change me. I can change myself through the awareness and understanding through that
Yeah.
speaking up and communication. Communication is everything.
because the challenge is to be able to lovingly say, that didn't make me feel good, or it sounded to me like what you just said, sounded like you're a bit like your father, or this is how it makes me feel, always coming to it from. But you have to, sometimes in the heat of the moment isn't the time to say it. It's when things have neutralized a little bit and you can talk about it. But the key is to be on it, to take care of it. I know sometimes the grandmother's wisdom was never go to bed having had an
Angry.
argument, with an unresolved argument. And that's really wise, because the more time we waste in unresolved issues doesn't help anything. Doesn't help.
And putting your head in the sand and not dealing with it doesn't help either.
Yeah, it's not good to suppress,
No.
but the more you communicate, the more you can see how compatible you are in being able to talk things through.
And that's a difficult thing for that. Communication at that level doesn't come naturally and easily for people, because people feel it's confrontational and they don't want confrontation. So usually the pattern is to avoid, and then it's unresolved. So it's always going to show its and rear its ugly head again until such time as it's resolved. Or if not, it will just continue to eat away and impact the relationship in a negative way.
Because we found that the sooner we address things, the better. And the sooner we address things, we realize every single time there's a blip, there's a conflict. It's like, we talk about it, we resolve it, and then things get better. But then, of course, you're on to the next thing, because there's always something else.
Yeah.
That helps you be continually in a state of growth and learning, and the relationship keeps clearing. It's like we have to calibrate it. You have to keep it healthy. You have to stay with it. You have to, hold, you have to work on it. Everyone knows that. And it's when you go into neglect, self-neglect, or in neglect of the relationship, is when the silt builds up, and then it'll show.
That's when just say a small thing happens and it blows up, and it's like, well, it was only this, but it's not about that.
Yeah.
It's the build up over time of the old stuff that's just sitting there ready to.
Yeah, you guys are definitely touching on a lot of things that I want to get into, like effortlessness and how effortless should things be, but we'll go into that in a bit.
Yeah.
But I love how I can already tell, like, the communication between you guys is so like compatible, that's probably what's really worked between you guys. So
it helps, because we both, every single relationship I had until I met Dean, was learning. I was learning from, and it was preparing me to be in this relationship. And there, it's always beautiful, and it's always hard. but we learn and we learn. But I said to Dean even today in preparation to talk to you today, I said, it really helps to enjoy the same things. I mean, you don't want
Yeah.
to, like, I know what I loved about meeting Dean is that we were so much alike. It was like, wow, you love that and you love that and you love that. That shared enjoyment of life really helps. And then since we've come together, I've noticed actually how different we are. And that's beautiful too. And
Oh,
like the ways in which we are the same drew us together. But then it was really important to realize how we're different, and that's been a lifetime journey really to say, because I just assumed that everything about Dean was so much like me because we were experiencing it in our what
can
we
I
love.
ask what are things, that was going to be one of my questions, is what are things that are similar and what are things that are different between you guys?
Good
Like
question.
just like the main ones. I know there's probably a lot, but maybe the top things that come to your mind.
Oh gosh. The first thing that comes to my mind is our biorhythm, with meaning like I'm more of a morning person. I'm up, I'm a planner, I get it done, I've got it on the list. I'm so the first half of the day I'm on high speed. And by 2:30, 3 o'clock in the afternoon, I'm going down the other side of the mountain, right? Like I want to finish my day. I want to check it off. I want to relax and enjoy. And Dean, the exact opposite.
Wow.
So he's chilled. He's not really a morning person. He hates alarms in the morning. He doesn't want a list of stuff to do. He wants to be,
Free
he's,
wheel it.
yeah.
I'll deal with it in the moment.
Well, and see, I would say you're a procrastinator, right? It's like, come on, get on with it. Let's get on with it. No, it's just his biorhythm, and I've had to really come to respect that. It means we have great conversations at 2:30 in the afternoon. I'm on my way up, and he's, but I've had to adjust to that because, and both of us have had to adjust to that because, I'll be, come on, let's clean out the garage today, and I'm ready to go at 10 o'clock in the morning.
Wow.
Not ready till 2 or 3. Well, that's not when I want to start cleaning out the garage.
Yeah.
So, but it's kind of funny in a way. It's like once you really come to know how the other person is different, then you respect it, and that's where the compromise comes in. So I know I can't put pressure on him first thing in the morning. I know I can't
Mhm.
have expectations of getting a whole lot done before noon.
Yeah.
Well, I'll just touch on one of the interesting things is because our upbringings, and that's part of our synchronistic story, is our families are mirror images of each other from opposite sides of the planet.
Wow.
That's a whole nother story. So, but what happened, Rebecca's upbringing with her parents was totally different to mine. In other words, she came from a very touchy, feely, I love you, and that kind of thing. I didn't come from that, never told I was loved. Not that my parents didn't, I had great parents, but they were never emotional, never showed that love, and never touchy feely. And so we come together, and Beck's very touchy feely, and I'm not. So we've had to learn to find that balance where
That's interesting
yeah,
because that means you're almost saying, because you know how there's the five love languages.
yeah,
So you would think that somebody whose love language is affection would not get along with someone whose love language isn't affection. But Dean, did you learn that it is within you to be like that, or
I'm a lot better than what I was. Am I going to go the full way Rebecca is? No. We find a place in the middle. I mean, if I was like her, it would be sick. It'd be,
We would just be in a pretzel ball all the time. Because I'm always touching him. I'm always hugging him. I'm always, rubbing his back and he's
yeah,
just not like that. It's just not part of his
but
language.
I'm a lot
Yeah.
more than I ever was or ever have been.
Yeah.
And I've learned to say I love you and those things that are hard
wow,
for me to say because I never heard it, right, when I was young. So the differences there
Mhm.
through our upbringings brought us together, but we understand through that we've learned to, I don't know if compromise is the word, but to find the middle ground.
And actually there's real beauty in that because it's like each of us in the ways in which we're different, the ways in which we're the same is one thing. The ways in which we're different, we've been able to learn from each other. It's like I need to actually be more like him, which is less dependent on physical affection for
mhm,
approval, acceptance, or sense of calm, or all the things you get from physical expression.
Mhm.
I need to be more independent about that, and he needs to learn to allow, physical, informal physical interaction. So it's like, and I needed to learn how to chill and not be up 7:30 in the morning with a list, thinking that I had to accomplish it all by
Ha-
noon. So
ha-
it's like we're learning to be more like each other, and there's a beautiful gift in that.
And how did that, if you can just briefly explain, how did that learning process look like? Because Dean, you were saying, I learned to give more verbal affirmation, like saying I love you, or I learned to be more touchy. But was that a process for you, Rebecca, in telling him, or was it just from showing, like, how did that look? And same to you, like.
Good question. I think
Mhm.
I learnt by there was frustration from Rebecca at times when I wasn't as responsive,
Mhm.
and was a bit more aloof. Aloof is the word, because my mother was very aloof. My mother is an amazing person. She's incredible, but she had to bring up 5 kids and a father who was, pretty emotionally detached and in the business and what have you. So I had to learn to be independent, in which I came aloof and just self-dependent on myself. I didn't need anybody else. So when I come to the relationship, I've come with that independence and that aloofness. So that was frustrating for Rebecca at times, but I was able to see that through, our experiences. That then I realized, well, I that's not fair on Rebecca if I'm withholding that part of myself to her. That's not fair on her. So I had to learn over time, and I'm still learning. We learn
Yeah.
every day to be um, more communicative, and tell her I love her and hug her and rub her back and do all those things
Yeah.
that I never used to do. I do a lot more. She could say I could
Mhm.
always do better, but I'm definitely I'm
But
definitely
that's amazing to see that. I feel like it gives some people hope that a person doesn't have to come in a perfect package, that as long as you have that communication and probably other elements that are smoother, then you could talk things through or work things out, um, and get there. It doesn't have to be like the person doesn't have to have the exact level or degree of love language that you do. There has to be like fundamental values and shared core values that really connect people. So, and for you, Rebecca, do you, in terms of the learning process, how was that for you? Like, what was there things that Dean requested that was hard on you, or anything that comes to mind?
Yeah.
It's kind of a hard question because you have to think back, right?
No, because it's always there. I mean, you're always
Okay.
working on it. I mean, back to the love language, the physical love language. I mean, I had to be honest with how I felt about it and get over my feelings of rejection, or why doesn't he like me, or because I was correlated, because my parents were family were very physically affectionate, so that was just a normal language to me. So I thought if he's not expressing himself, there's something wrong. He doesn't like me, or he doesn't,
Mhm.
whatever, he's not attracted to me. So I had to sort of get over that and talk to him about it. My issue, and I would say more, is that, I want to influence or control things because I already have an opinion about it and I want it this way. And I'm a planner. I'm more of a type A personality than Dean.
Mhm.
So, but he actually did a really great job of talking to me about it. When I wanted to influence what he wore, because we were going out to dinner with friends, and I thought it would really be great if he wore the yellow shirt. And that's not, he would just kind of gently say to me, I don't want to be, I never talk to you about what you wear. Why would you say that to me?
Mhm.
And he's really good at saying it in a non-confrontational way. Whereas I'm a little bit more sparky, and I would, come out with a
Yeah.
more aggressive response. Whereas Dean just really calmly said, I don't want to be told what to wear. And I thought, he's exactly right. I
Yeah.
mean, if he said that to me, I would be so shocked. Well, first of all, I'd be so shocked because it's not Dean's style. But yeah, it's like, really? I mean, geez, I really better consider what I'm wearing. But things like
Yeah, I
that.
don't think any woman wants to be told what to wear.
But
yeah.
consequently, so does a guy. He doesn't want to be
Yeah.
told.
Yeah.
And I had to get over the fact that I would have an expectation,
Yeah.
um, funny things like, I mean, he's Australian. It's beautiful there all year round. So they don't have sort of winter clothes and summer clothes and seasonal clothing like we have. Like we would choose not to wear linen in February, right? We're Canadians. We don't do that. Whereas he doesn't have those rules in his mind. So he's like wearing a linen shirt and it's February. And I'm like, Dean, to him, he doesn't want rules. He doesn't want definitions, and he doesn't care if he wears a linen shirt in February. If that's the shirt he wants to wear, who are you to tell?
Yeah.
So I had to get over my rules, right?
Right.
He's not a rule guy. And actually what's beautiful is that I'm not a rule person. I'm a rebel against rules too, in a different way. So I had to come to respect that that was the way he expressed his own individuality. And I had to, so, part of it is really the more you get to know another person, the more they know themselves, and the more you get to know another person, the more you can respect who they are. I mean, he grew up having to wear a school uniform for every single year of his education. We didn't have that in Canada. In Australia, everyone wears school uniforms. He didn't want to be told what to wear. He'd been told what to wear all through school, which was not a happy journey. He never liked school, so that wasn't a happy thing for him. So for his wife to tell him what to wear, school warden, telling him to tuck his shirt in or something. So, I had to respect his story, who he is, why he might be like that, and to set, because really everybody just wants to be free to be who they are.
And it's how you respond though.
Yes.
She used to say, she said to me, "You're not wearing that shirt, are you? Or you haven't?
Yes.
Are you shaving?"
Yeah.
And I'd go, "No." Well, I think why aren't you? You should have shave or something. And I say, "Well, I don't want to shave. And if people don't like me because I haven't shaved, that's their problem."
I love a soft, clean, shaved face.
But what I'm getting at, she says that she makes those suggestions. If you say, I've learned to look at her with a smile and say, "I'll take that under advisement, dear," and then just do what the hell I want.
That's such a good
yeah. So that's how
such a good motto to go by for all men. Just say thank you for that advice. What did you say? Thank you for that advice.
Thank you for your advice or for that
advisement.
I'll take that under advisement. What I'm going to do, I'm going to wear the shirt or I'm not going to shave. But thank you for your thought. Rather than getting all pissed off and don't tell me what to do, that doesn't achieve anything. So you got to bring some light into it as you navigate these things.
Yeah.
The more we talk about it, the more we realize what we're talking about is really silly stuff.
Silly, yeah. And it's
silly.
Yeah. And it's just nice to see that even for whatever the silliness is, it's how you respect each other ultimately, and you're not, doesn't hold back from the love that you have between each other. So it's so nice to see that.
She's more controlling and planning and a go-getter. I like to go with the flow and be in the moment, but I've had to learn to be a bit more structured, and Becca's also had to learn to be a little bit more flexible and let go. And
like I want to know what we're doing this weekend, and he's looking at me like it's Wednesday. What are you talking to me about Saturday and Sunday for? Like
unless we're going away, which we're not. It's like, well, what are we doing today or tomorrow? So I don't know. I'll work it out in the morning when I get up.
But see, that drives me crazy because I'm a planner. But really, I need to be a little bit more in the moment, go with the flow. Now, he doesn't worry about anything, and he's fine, right?
Yeah.
I need to be a little bit more, and he needs to sort of think about maybe what are we doing on the weekend.
But you balance each other out in that way.
Yeah.
Okay, so now I'll really start the question. So what would you say in that you described when you did meet in that conference, what attracted you to each other was how similar you are to each other? Is that what you said? You guys were
not in that moment.
Okay.
You can explain.
For me, it was a familiarity. It was as if when I saw him the day before in a store, and I just felt like I knew him. He felt like he looked like my father and my uncles. It was there was physical familiarity, and also I was connected with Australia through another relationship, and so his Australian accent I heard. It's like it was a familiarity. That's all. The only way.
Well,
I can
I would
explain
say it was more a recognition from a soul level. Our souls knew each
Wow.
other. She recognized me straight off.
Wow.
It took me a little longer because guys are usually a little slower. So,
Yep.
yeah,
it.
but I did get there where when I realized it's like, so yeah, there's something going on, but it was more. I think it was as much beyond the physical is important, but it was much deeper than that. When the recognition was at a
Mhm.
soul level.
Okay. Wow.
Yeah.
Okay. Um, so what would you say brings out the best in each other? Like how do you bring out the best in Rebecca and how do you bring out the best in Dean?
Good question.
Bring out the best. I think for me, because this was part of my growing up, that I never got any validation or positive feedback, or it was always very negative, and that affected me. And I'm aware of how that affected me. She's always validating me, which has helped me learn to be more comfortable doing that with her. But she's always.
We're just laughing because I'm always I'm his greatest fan, I adore him. So it's easy for me to compliment him or to say that's awesome,
So
or
when
I
you
love
get
that you did that, or
so when you get that, you feel good, and it brings the best out of you, and you want to be
Yes.
more like that because you
Yeah.
do enjoy that feedback. So I've learned to
Mhm.
by giving the same to Rebecca, that brings the best out because you feel good.
What would you say is a quality in you that you hold in high regard? Like,
A quality in me.
yes, that you hold in yourself as a high regard. Like,
Wow. Um, a quality in me that I hold in high regard.
I know the answer to that, but I'll
okay,
see.
you can say it. You can answer for it.
Well, to me, the thing that I admire the most about him is his integrity,
Okay.
right?
Yeah.
Because he's real. He's trying really hard to get it right or to work on it. He doesn't.
Okay.
There's no dishonesty. Like of course, we couldn't, because each of us would know the other if that we were being dishonest. But he's completely honest and integral. And that
So,
means even to say, how are you feeling about that? Even if he doesn't know the answer to that, he'll let me know later. Right?
yeah.
So,
But would you
so when you
say,
have that, you can completely relax. You're
yeah,
completely free. There's
yeah.
nothing, I feel like that gives me unconditional love. Like I can be whoever I am, however I am, good, bad, and the ugly, and
Mhm.
safe, I'm loved, I can be amazing, and I can be a complete mess up, and he would still be there for
So
me.
honesty and integrity, that would make sense for me. They're very important qualities for me, which I live my life on.
And what would you say is Rebecca's, highest quality or characteristic that,
Oh, she's just a love bug. I mean, she's just an energy of love, and her expression, and uh, her her validation. She's always telling others how amazing they are. And I remember early on in our relationship, she was talking to a couple, and she said, we love you so much. And it was like, wow, I've never, that just wasn't my culture. The energy is she's a true lover.
Yeah.
She's a true lover of life. And she brings out that and she's brought that out in me, and she has that ability to show that to others and help them see it in themselves.
something that comes to mind is when in the beginning process of dating, like how do you notice if you're really connected to that person versus the person is still looking outwards? Because sometimes people might see better qualities outside of a relationship. So how do you know that that connection is really authentic and that both people are benefiting versus I'm not that happy, I'm still looking outside? Does that make sense? I'm not sure if I'm and
Well,
clear.
B, if you even have that thought, it's because you aren't happy and you're still looking outside. You know, when
Right.
someone's kind of is questioning, I'm not really sure, is this person fulfilling me, or maybe is he really committed, or, you know, then they aren't. So
There's
it either is or it isn't. I mean, that's not very articulate.
there's an inner knowing that you just know, that we knew very early. Um, as far as dating, we're not the people to ask. We never dated once,
Yeah,
right?
Wow.
Never dated once
So you
because
just knew.
we
you just
knew. And
knew.
when I came up to visit Rebecca,
Wow.
we spent a couple of days in San Francisco, and that's where we
Wow.
had this connection.
Mm.
And then when I came up to visit her, it's like she picked me up from the airport, went back to where she was living at the time with my suitcase, and it's like I moved in, and it's like it felt like home right from the beginning. So
Mhm.
we just took
Wow.
that role and relationship right from the beginning. So there was no dating or anything for us.
I mean, maybe that's the advantage of being mature, to, you know, older in life. It's like
Mhm.
either is or it isn't, you know. When you're younger, I know the is and the isn't is more of a question, you know, you're navigating it. You're still looking, you're not really sure. And to
Mhm.
me, the sign of that is there's just more to learn. There's, and I think that's on, you know, that's the unfortunate part to me about the race to be married, the race to have children, the race to fulfill the societal expect and parental, you know, expectations of you, when you still aren't finished, and we're never finished, but growing and learning and becoming. So, you know, when you're younger, it's like we should be have lots of relationships. You know, I mean, I'm saying, you know, about monogamy and commitment and integrity and honesty, but you know, each relationship we learn something else from. I'm so thankful I had a number of relationships before I met Dean, because I learned from all of them. Sometimes really it was really hard. And but I also learned what I loved about a relationship and what I was good at about relationship, and the attributes that are absolutely required, and honesty and integrity is one. And you know, another I would say, just on a sideline about Dean, is that he's expressive, he talks, he shares. I can, you know, we could pour a glass of wine and talk for hours before we're ready to do like, to me that was everything, because I'd been in
Mhm.
relationship with guys who didn't really talk to me. I felt like I was always having to excavate. I felt like I always had to do the work to get them to share with me. Well, you know, it was only after being in lots of those relationships I thought, I'm not doing that anymore. I am not gonna be in a crowbar relationship where I have to do all the work to get the communication to happen. So now that I have
Mhm.
someone that I can talk to about everything at any time in any way, and he is fully present for me. He's never in a
Yeah.
hurry to leave me or to run away or to change the subject, or he doesn't get squirmy and you know, jump up from the
Yeah.
table or whatever, all those things. That's hugely valuable, because I got to the point where I didn't want to be in a relationship anymore where I had to do all the work. Wasn't going to do that.
If you can give maybe just a couple of very broad examples of what makes you happy to communicate about, just so people have an idea like what might be normal for a healthy couple to be excited about sharing. Right.
As far as communication goes, I think early on, because of my coloured history, we decided that there was no secrets, no
Mhm.
secrets in relationship. If you've got secrets or you're
Yeah.
holding something, that's not a good
Yeah.
idea.
Yeah.
So so
That should be a vow,
yeah, it should be a
actually.
vow. So in the
Yes.
early days,
Mhm.
I came out and basically shared with Rebecca all my crazy past and the things that I'd done, and you know, so because I knew when we went to Australia, all my mates would get her, pull her aside and say, "Did you know Dean did this? Do you know Dean did that? Do you know?"
You didn't want to get in trouble.
I told her everything that I could remember beforehand, so that she wasn't
Every
surprised.
now and then I hear a new story, though.
I had a lot of fun. Let's put it that way. We won't get into that in this discussion. But if you have secrets, that's a setup. It
Mhm.
should not be secrets
Mhm.
in a equal relationship. And this is
Yeah.
an equal relationship. In our home, you know, we're a team. We're a full-on team. and we support each other, and we do everything that together. So I don't know if that answered your question or not.
Yeah, it did. And I think the other part of that question, I'm trying to remember. Oh, what are just a couple of broad things you enjoy communicating
Oh,
on?
yeah.
Oh, wow. For me as a woman, I can talk to him about everything. And that I love that. I
Yeah.
love that. So there's nothing that
No subject is off limits.
yeah,
No
and that
subject.
to me is absolute freedom. I mean, he may be bored, you know, or something, you know, he doesn't really want to talk about whatever, but actually it's really not true.
There's no judgment in what you bring up, and there's like a freeness and just expressing. There's no pressure to not say something or not express something. Yeah.
Yeah, and I mean, the journey we're on together, the work we do together. So we work together, we live together, we do everything together. And so our work and what's going on in the world, and the evolution of consciousness and what we're experiencing is very much what we're all about. We live our life to our own truth, but we also we have an understanding of what we're going through right now. There's a much bigger picture, so we talk about that, and share information and discuss it and talk about it, because that's who we are. That's what we're here for. We're here for a certain purpose and a role, and we do it, and we're doing it together. One of the few,
Yeah.
not too many couples that do the work we do together, and we work with people together a lot of the time. But if people want one or the other, we do that as well. But our conversations and our communication is a common theme of what we love, and we love life, and we love the journey. We love understanding more and more about our purpose and why we're here and who we are, and that's very much a part of our communication and what we talk about often.
Do you ever find, oh, sorry, what were you going to say?
Well, I was going to say that's an intellectual compatibility too, but it also means that if something happens for me and I have a strong emotional reaction to something, you know, or suddenly I'm sad about something in my life, I can share that with Dean instantaneously, and he would always give me the respect of hearing me at any time, and that's a lot. That's a rare gift, I think. It also
Yeah.
means I'm not a hugely high maintenance emotional woman who needs all kinds of attention and approval from my partner. You know, but I can have whatever it is that I need whenever I need it. And that's a
Yeah.
beautiful respect and freedom that
Yeah.
that I maybe didn't fully ever experience before in other relationships. So
It is
that's awesome.
for some reason it is rare with men, I find. Yeah.
Why you think
Um,
that's why I'm more in touch with the feminine aspect. I've got the masculine, which
mhm,
was where I came from in my early life, my previous life, being a jock and a guy's guy and party. I was the
mhm.
real guy, and all sorts of things. But now I've learned to tap into the feminine aspect of me, being more sensitive and nurturing and understanding and caring
More
and
creative.
more creative. So that's come out I found more balance within myself, that I can, whatever part of me I need to express, I can be strong and protective and stand up, and if I need to, but I can listen and be sensitive and caring and
Just briefly, because we can get into that later, but how did you get into developing that part of you?
well, it
Good
was
question.
it was always there, but I didn't really understand it. So through my journey and my spiritual journey of understanding the masculine and feminine principles, I made an effort to understand, and then a decision that I was going to work on bringing those aspects of myself forward, to bring myself into more of a whole human being, and operating from all aspects of myself, and not just being
Mhm.
the male, guy, which is there, but bringing in the other aspects gives me the ability to sit and have compassion and listen, and which is more a feminine quality.
And
right?
also to emote. I mean, Dean's a very sensitive man, and I think there are lots and lots and lots of sensitive men who've dealt with it in a different way. And I guess maybe what you're articulating is that most of his life he spent covering up by, with sports and drinking and partying and being busy with, expressing masculine attributes, but always you've always been a sensitive. Your mother describes you as being a sensitive young boy too. And it's like you finally decided somehow that you wanted to connect with the more
Well, I was there all along. Even when my old life, I'd find a lot of my mates' girlfriends and wives would talk to me. I would find them talking to them. I would often, the guys would be off doing the thing, and sometimes I'd be with the girls and talking to them, because I found it was made more sense, because the guys were getting drunk and it was all dribble and and
talking about sports.
sometimes that, it's like, I don't need that. So I'd find that
So even then you weren't that into that.
I mean,
that
I
kind of
was to a
lifestyle.
certain extent, but I liked the fact that I could sit in the women, I guess, saw something in me that they could feel safe that would sit down and
Wow.
talk about. That's just, I guess I didn't recognize that at that time. It wasn't till later that I began to
Yeah.
understand
I can't even picture you as that. I don't know. I'm so used to seeing him as like this coach, spiritual person. And it's so funny how people could change dramatically like that.
Yeah.
Yeah, but what I'm saying is, even when he was being a guy's guy, you were always a sensitive man,
Yes.
always sensitive. And because even when I first met him and he was sharing things that had happened to me in his life, he was sharing things that had deeply, deeply touched him, but they were sensitive things.
Mm,
They were sensitive things. They weren't insensitive. I don't know how else to describe it. So his heart and his sensitivity was always there. He just maybe
yeah,
what
I didn't understand it.
that's
right.
I didn't
What would you say to other men out there that might not understand it? How would you maybe what advice would you give them to explore that
you
or
just
understand it better?
you just have to get in touch with it and not be frightened of your emotions and what you feel, and to talk about and to express yourself, um, and yeah, not be afraid of that, because most guys will shut that part down because they're not comfortable with it, and I'll be the man's man and what have you. But what they're doing is they're shutting down an aspect of themselves, which with guys, it's like the heart chakra gets shut down because they don't want to show their emotions or show sensitivity or show any of that stuff, because I'm gonna get more.
Mhm.
Consequently, that's why heart disease and heart problems are the biggest issue and killer with men on the planet.
well, yeah, the comment "big boys don't cry" has done more damage to shutting down
Yeah.
men who needed to show their sensitivity and emotional.
Um, I don't know if you can even answer this, but what's an example of expressing, like, because maybe some men don't even know where to start. So what's just as an example, is it saying, I feel like this, or is it simply communicating, this is what's in my mind right now? Like,
Yeah. For me, it was more the allowing the feelings to, because I used to shut it down with drinking and smoking and partying and all
mhm,
that stuff. That's how I
mhm,
numbed everything out. I had a lot of anger in my early days, and I had to deal with that. So it's about just being in touch with it. And I know when my father passed away 4 years ago, so he was the first parent that I'd lost. I've never experienced losing a parent. I know a lot of people have, but I
mhm,
remember saying to myself, okay, I'm going to immerse myself in the emotional roller coaster of what it's going to feel like to lose a parent. So I was just, okay, I'm going to allow whatever it wants to emerge, and to feel it and to be in it and let it and experience it to the fullest, because that's what I wanted to do. Most time we think, oh, well, I've got to swallow it down. I've got to be strong. I can't appear to be weak. And so we kind of shut it down. That's not a healthy approach. Um, Guys these days are a lot more sensitive than they used to be. There are a lot of guys
mhm,
who cry and show their emotions a lot more. You've just got to be willing to go into that. You've got to make a decision. Either you decide, I want to shut it down. That's the way I've always been. That's how I've survived. That's what works for me. I don't want to go there. Or you decide, you know what? That's another aspect of myself I want to experience, I want to explore.
Okay.
And the thing is that emotional alchemy has created a different man, right? Like a better man, a more whole man, a man that can color with every color in the paint box, not just some. And you're not actually afraid of all those things. So, but it takes courage. I mean, I think maybe I don't really understand it fully, but I know for Dean, a lot of times you need to process emotions physically.
Mhm.
So something comes up. It actually works for him to go for a run. It works for him to
Wow.
hop on the bicycle and go. Maybe it's an athlete's way too, but or he has a punching bag in the basement, and sometimes he needs to just. So if
Mhm.
it comes up physically, or that's how you're maybe more comfortable expressing an emotion physically, and then you can get to the subtlety of what it is.
Sure. Yeah, you've got to
I don't know.
find ways to allow your emotional side to give it that expression. So particularly with anger, I need to deal with that through sports, through activity, through working out, running. That's a way that I not just suppress it. I don't want to suppress it. I want it to work through me. So if I'm angry, I've learned not to project it onto Rebecca. I'd say, look, it's not about you. Something's come up. I need to go for a run. I need to go and work out and just work this through. And then when I let it work through, it clears, and then I'm able to recenter.
Mhm.
Okay.
And sometimes I can feel it building, and I'm thinking, I hope he goes for a run. Because
You're going for a run, dear?
yeah, because that somehow is a pressure valve. It helps move the right emotion,
Yeah.
energy and motion, emotion, right?
Yeah.
So when he physically moves, it actually helps it move, and then he can come into understanding.
Do you have something like that, Rebecca, that's, or you just get right into?
Well, mine's a little bit more subtle. I go inside and I
Yeah.
can be more, I can do the turtle thing, kind of shut down, close out
Hmm.
the world until I figure it out.
Okay.
I'm more likely to go into the dark bathtub with a candle lit to try to figure out what it is, or have a good cry, or go to bed early, or
Right.
I go inside some to figure it out and process
Okay.
it before I can understand it sometimes.
Before I forget, there was a question related to just something else we were saying, in terms of communication. Um, Probably never happened between the two of you, but in terms of awkwardness or lack of things to talk about, because I think with some people, they don't talk enough. Maybe that's just because in their dynamic, they're just not talkers. But is that something that's ever happened for you guys where you didn't feel grounded, or you felt like you needed space and you didn't feel like talking, or you weren't
Yeah.
connected?
Oh,
Oh,
yeah,
sure.
yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely. It's
Yeah.
really important to be able to honor that in each other. And sometimes I go somewhere, or I don't say a lot sometimes, depending on where I am. It doesn't mean I'm not having a good time. It just means I don't need to say anything. But it's really
Yeah.
important to honor each other. And sometimes I'll say to Beck, I just need some Dean time. It's important that I get Dean time.
Yeah.
Time on my own, just to do whatever I need to do, to play the guitar, or do something that I need on my own, which is for me. So it's important, and
Mhm.
likewise for Rebecca, that
Mhm.
she is
Mhm.
given her time to go and sit in the bathtub for an hour, or whatever she needs to do. So that's an important ingredient in a healthy relationship, to respect and each other, and to be able to say, listen, I need a day, or I need some time on my own. And she says,
Mhm.
yeah, sure.
The
That's what
other
I was. Go
thing,
ahead. Go ahead.
the other thing Dean's good at is when something comes up, he'll say, something's bugging me. I'm not sure what it is yet. So don't take this personally. I'll let you know when I figure it out, kind of thing. So,
Yeah.
you can tell he's in angst, he's upset about something, whether it's work,
Yeah.
whatever, but he has to process it. So he's actually gotten good at saying, this is where I am. This isn't about you. That's reassuring, because he'll say, this isn't between you and
Yeah.
I'm working something out. And then I know to leave him alone.
Are there times when it's not necessarily about something in particular, but that you might need space from each other, or you just never need that space from each other?
Oh yeah, we always need that space from each
Yeah.
other. Right? That's like a constant calibration, right?
So you
Some,
guys lived together almost right away, right? So how did
Yeah,
that work? How
yeah.
did you, like, how many days go, like, what do you need for yourselves? How many days, or how did that work?
it's more like a calibration all the time. So
Mhm.
what we do is be really honest with each other. So if there's something I want to watch on TV that's my thing, he says, "Oh no, I want to watch this," and we have two TVs, right?
Yeah.
And so there's no attachment to what, and then it's great when we find something that the two of us want to watch together and we watch together. So we're continually just being honest about what it is that what we need in the moment.
And
That's
particularly,
the
yeah,
most important thing.
particularly now because we, Rebecca's retired, so we are basically together 24/7, apart from one day of the week when I go down to Niagara for work to do some with a client. But we're together all the time. We don't have kids, so kids are always a distraction in a relationship. You've got kids, then that's a whole different dynamic. We don't have kids,
Right.
so we don't have any distractions from each other as such. And we're Beck's home all the time, so we're together a lot. So it is important just to find that balance. But a lot of other people who are dealing with children and that kind of thing, it's
Yeah.
a different dynamic.
Yeah. Like during COVID, for example, when things were closed, I'm imagining other people, like, because I've heard of people divorcing, or I don't know, there's a lot that's happened during COVID. And so for people who are stuck at home and where they're usually used to being out and about and socializing or working, how does that dynamic play out where you figure out what you need and not get into each other's space?
Well, thankfully, before COVID, we were well practiced. I'd been
Mhm.
retired for 5 years. And so, but that first year, when we were both at home together all the time and working together and living together, we just got really good at, um, um, finding the daily balance.
Yeah.
I made plans with girlfriends. He made sure he did that. He
Yeah.
could, so it's like you still have to have your own independent lives and space. And then of course so by the time COVID hit, we were well practiced, and we just would make choices about being in different rooms, or
Yeah.
I'm gonna go and read for a while and go somewhere else. So we
Right.
actually used the functionality of our house better,
Yeah.
as and sometimes we'd even say, actually, I'm going to go and take my dinner, and there's this program I'm really into. I'm going to go eat my dinner in another room, and we just
Yeah.
gave each other permission to do that, so that we didn't have codependent expectations of being together all the time, which does not create a colorful relationship. It's boring.
Because you know what that made me think of, like introversion. There's a lot of people who might not even want to um, commit to a relationship because they got so used to living on their own. So is there advice or something to be said about that? Like if somebody is very introverted,
Mhm.
uh,
Again, it's honor knowing yourself really well and
yeah,
articulating what it is that you need,
right.
and expecting that the other person will respect and honor that, and then you work on the balance, right? It's
Yeah.
your communication. An introvert likely needs to be drawn out a little bit in safe
Mhm.
situations, right?
Yeah.
But it wouldn't be balanced for an empathic introvert to be with an extrovert who wanted to have parties in the house all the time. It's just not going to
Right.
be compatible. So it's fine.
Yeah.
Again, it's finding that balance. And usually, as I said before, it's like I need to be a little bit more like Dean, and Dean needs to be a little
Mhm.
more like me. So we're rubbing off on each other in order to kind of become better people. And I think that's what, an introvert needs, to honor their sensitivities, their need for solitude, their need to regroup and recalibrate privately. That is really, really important, and it will always have to be honored for an introvert.
Because
An
in
introvert also needs to be encouraged to, why don't you come on out
yeah,
with your friends on Friday, and it'll be
yeah.
okay.
Because it might be normal for someone to want 2 days to themselves, but I guess what you're saying is like a finding a balance and
Yes.
And
uh,
the key to this is not taking things personally. So if I say to
yeah,
Beck, she's watching something and I'm saying, you know what, I don't want to watch. You want to watch, this is great. I'm really not into that. I think I just want to go lie down and listen to some music. And so she doesn't come to me and say, well, what have I done wrong? What's wrong with you? It's like,
Mhm.
she just knows that you want to watch that, fantastic. I don't want to sit and watch something that I don't want to watch just because you think I don't, there's something wrong, or
Yeah.
She
so
doesn't want to be with me or
don't want
something.
to, don't you want to be with me? It's like, of course. So you've got to find ways of not taking things personally, because it's not that not I'm pissed off or anything. It's like she's doing something she wants. It's like, no, that doesn't work for me. I want to go and lie down and or listen
Sure.
to music or do something,
Yeah.
read or something else, and being
Yeah.
okay with that. Yeah.
Well, you know, I mean, I think maybe it goes back to honesty and integrity. When you have honesty and integrity in a relationship, then you're free. Like,
Yeah.
I don't have to worry about, you know, and even, you know, a couple of years ago, I was helping my elderly parents break up their home and move to a new place and set up house in an assisted living situation. So I was gone for months at a time helping them with that. It didn't occur to me to worry about Dean or to be concerned about him or to not trust that we were going to be apart and what would happen.
Mhm.
You know, I just knew everything was rock solid and that our
Yeah.
relationship continue, you know, whether I was, you know, we were together every day or not. So,
Yeah.
but when you have honesty and integrity and commitment and respect with each other, you can be free in whatever situation you're in. I mean, you know, Dean could say to me, listen, I feel like I need to go to an ashram in India for 6 months and I've got to go. I have to do that. I would honor his heart's yearning to fulfill something
Wow.
he needed to fulfill for himself. Of
And
course,
so he could go for 6 months and you would respect his space for that 6 months.
yes.
Yeah.
I'd cry like heck at the airport, but I would be completely respectful of, and I think that's, you know, what maybe that's a spiritual or mature relationship. I don't know.
That's amazing.
Because
Yeah.
yeah, everybody wants to be free. Everybody
Yes.
wants to be free to be who they are and to be loved unconditionally and to be
Mhm.
supported and to feel safe. And
Yeah.
if you can find most of all those things in yourself, and then you find somebody else to share all that with, it's it is
That's the
possible. It
key.
is
That's key.
amazing. It's
Mhm.
great to be in a committed relationship and feel free to be who you are.
Yeah. That's powerful, but I don't know if everyone could do that. Um, because that's a lot of time apart. That's not just a couple of days, but that says a lot about respecting each other's space.
Well, again, maybe it goes back to that thing about, you know, we cannot, it's the belief that another one completes us.
You know, a lot of people, I think jealousy is like not a fun one. It's not a fun topic in relationships. So when you say a partner can go away for 6 months, like I think for a lot of people in a relationship, maybe that would come up for them in that 6 month period is, oh, I wonder if that person is meeting someone, or I wonder, you know, if they're having a great time without me, like whatever it is that might come up.
Mhm.
So is that, does that come back to the integrity and honesty? Like what keeps it strong and what keeps the thoughts from becoming something you project onto your partner?
Well, see,
Yeah,
that
it's a big one.
to me, it's like if you're insecure in yourself,
Hmm.
you're insecure around your relationship, or you're jealous if um, you know, if I see Rebecca talking to some guy and I get jealous, well, that's in it, which I
Yeah.
never ever would.
Yeah.
That's
Yeah.
just, it's just showing an insecurity in yourself. So it's
Mhm.
always everything that comes up in you in a relationship is your opportunity for healing
Mhm.
and growth, and to deal with your insecurities, which are all based in fear. Jealousy is
Right.
fear of losing them. And yet if you're in a strong relationship with honesty and integrity, and there's just a knowing that that thought would
It
not even
just doesn't
cross my
exist.
mind or Rebecca's mind. That would never be a thought.
Right.
And in my mind, if that happened, then it's meant to happen and I've got to deal with it. Right. I don't, it's like,
Mhm.
I don't
Mhm.
even have those thoughts because I'm secure enough in myself to not be worried or threatened by that.
Yeah. And neither of us are looking. Again, it comes back to not looking outside of yourself for fulfillment.
Yeah.
So that, you know, if an external person was threatening to either one of us, it's because we allowed it in. You know,
Yeah.
know what I mean? Like if say Dean's
Yeah.
off in Ashram for 6 months and I, meet some guy at the grocery store who captures my interest. Well, I let that in. I attracted. What is that?
Mhm.
Why am I still looking outside myself for some degree of fulfillment? So,
Yeah.
but that's a more mature, we're 60 in our 60s. So, we can
Mhm.
have a more mature perspective on relationship. It's tougher when you're 20, 25, 30. Right? Because, you're thirsty for life, your hormones are going crazy, you're still trying to sort yourself out,
Yeah.
you're in more immature emotional dramas that capture, you're not seasoned yet. You haven't had enough life experience to trust, because it really is all about a degree of trust that the universe has your back, trust that magic happens, trust that all relationships, everybody outside of you is reflecting aspects of you back to you. So what do you have to learn from that? So until you actually are in a more mature understanding and expression of that, you get kind of caught, with the lower, what do you want to call it? It's like the more immature.
Lower vibrations.
Say that, but it's more immature, jealousy and competition. And does he like
Right.
me? And, does that group accept me? And all those things that we get
Right.
in our 20s and 30s. Right?
Because I think that still happens for some adults. So that's why I'm trying to figure out, for people who do just know, how would you describe that knowing? Because I know you described the synchronicities that brought you together, and your just innate connection. Would you say like there are other elements, or how would you describe those elements if you were to break that down, that inner knowing?
That's a tough one because it's really just a knowing. It's just
Right.
How do you
how do
articulate
you
it?
articulate that? If I say to you, you love your mother, right? Yes, I love.
Yes.
So well, how do you know?
Right.
Well,
Mhm.
I just know. I just love my mother. Right?
Yeah.
It's hard to put an expression on it. When someone says, "Oh, if I love them because I couldn't live without them," that's not a good answer. I don't think, because they're
Yeah.
saying they're saying the knowing is, "Oh, well, I couldn't live without them." Well, you could. If you had to, if one of us died, then you have to. You wouldn't want to.
Right.
So to
Yeah.
me, the knowing is hard to articulate. It's just a knowing. It's
Yeah.
just a knowing that we had right from the beginning.
Maybe if I contrast it to your past relationships, what was the difference in not knowing then compared to the knowing that you have now?
Well, for me, that I was in a relationship for 11 years. We never got married, but that's because there was an inner knowing at some level that I was struggling to look at, that I didn't want to marry her. And I remember talking to my dad about it, and he said, "Well, do you love her?" I said, "I don't know." And he said, "Well," so the knowing she was, but the knowing wasn't there for me. There was something missing.
Mhm.
I didn't really know what it was. I loved her, but I knew that there was a knowing there that I didn't want to settle, or I couldn't,
Mhm.
I didn't want to take the next step, but I didn't know how to get out of it. So
Yeah.
um, the way it kind of unfolded was quite miraculous, really, because we're still really good friends.
Wow.
But again, there was a knowing that it wasn't right for me.
And did you figure out what it was that wasn't right, or was it just
Yeah,
meeting a new person?
well, because she was the fire sign, I'm the water sign. That might tell you.
Mhm.
She's the fiery and I'm the chilled out guy. So she could bring out the worst of me, and we would
Okay.
have bad fights, and I didn't like that, and conflict, and there was just something that we just
She
weren't
was
on the same.
mercurial too. And Dean's so balanced and chilled that
Wow.
someone who's so mercurial wouldn't.
There was an age gap. When we met, I was 28 and she was 21. So she was
Mhm.
young, and I was older. So there was always that gap and the challenge. But what I learned was the relationship was perfect because it helped me speak up and have to represent myself. And so there was valuable lessons in that relationship, but it was never going to be a long, it was never meant to be
Yeah.
a permanent thing. And that's what we have to, even in this relationship, anything could happen at any time.
Yeah.
Like, not that we're going to leave each other, but
just because you're married, it doesn't.
Yeah. So it was all about the opportunity for me to learn from that relationship, but there was a knowing inside that she wasn't the one, so to speak.
Okay.
She was for the period we were together.
Mhm.
She wasn't the one that I was going to sign up for the rest of our life and have kids with and that kind of thing.
And what about you, Rebecca? And
Back to the knowing. How do you know?
yeah, when you contrast it to a past relationship, what didn't you know there that you know now? I don't know if I said that right. How would you describe that knowing compared to not having that knowing in a past relationship?
That's a really good question.
Mm.
I think it goes back to seeking outside yourself. For it's because we spend a lot of our energy looking out there to fulfill us. And I think once you focus more within, which usually happens because life is tough, or we go through some
Dark night of the soul.
dark night of the soul, or some radical alchemical change, some traumatic thing happens to us in our life to change us. And for me, it was the end of my first marriage, because on all external, in all external ways, it seemed like the perfect marriage, and everyone would have said that we were in this perfect marriage, house, just the whole thing. It was all this perfect marriage, but I was sad and lonely inside. So there was something inside of me, which was really a very tragic thing. I cried for a number of years because I thought, how could I appear to have everything, and yet it's not enough? And something was missing. And I really, that's the thing that helped me turn outside in, which then helped me get to know myself more, spend 5 more independent years, proving to myself that I had already had everything that I needed inside. But so the knowing, when I say the knowing, it's like the difference between your head and your heart. Your head is looking outside and trying to figure it out, and thinking of all the things that you need to do to get it and all that stuff. But where knowing is in the heart, which is already there. And we all have so much of that knowing, but we're so busy not listening to that because we're in our heads trying to figure it out.
How do you differentiate that from maybe an infatuation, or like a superficial love where you think, oh, that I really love that person, I really like him, but
well, I had a lot of those because I'm a Libra, right? So I've had crushes on boys my whole life. Now, thankfully, I have a crush on my husband, so that helps. That's something else.
After 22 years.
Yeah,
oh,
it's true. But I had lots of crushes. I think they're valuable too, right? I think it's that, like, I had one relationship that was really, it was about passion, and it was about excitement, and it was about intellectual stimulation. It was like a big, flaming crush, but it was never gonna last.
so how would you differentiate that feeling or that knowing between that superficial love?
One's like an addiction that fulfills all of your physical needs. And another one is in your heart that is bigger and I don't know how else to describe. Like when I first met Dean, from the very first day, like my heart started aching. I had this ache. In fact, I felt like I was having a heart attack, because it's like my heart chakra was opening and opening.
Wow.
It hurt, it ached. And it was really making me very aware of how I felt inside. Right. So having a heartache is different than having a crush or a loin ache, or having, so like the sexual attraction that just makes you kind of crazy, and all attached to your body and how you look and all those things. To me, I think it's one is like an earthly or a more immature way of expressing yourself, and the other is a more, how do I describe it?
Spiritual.
Spiritual, soul like, more beyond human experience type. And
Right.
we're all way more than just our earthly bodies, and it's
Mhm.
whether we're in touch with that or not, because everybody has that connection.
It's almost like you're saying there, when you do know, there's just no doubt. You're not questioning.
Not
Yeah.
question.
You don't even have to think about it.
Soon as you question, then that's a sign. Because if it's no
Right.
doubt, you wouldn't question. So as soon
That's
as
right.
someone comes to us and says, "Well, I'm not sure about this," it's like, okay, then that doubt
That's
is
a
there for
sign.
that's a sign, because otherwise you wouldn't be
Wow.
asking. Yeah.
Mhm.
Wow. I feel like this is like the heart of, I think, what needs to be heard. I think like it sometimes it does seem a bit abstract, but I feel like you never know, something might come up and be said and it's exactly what someone might need to hear. Or just the way that you say something
Mhm.
might click for somebody.
And
The most important thing I would say is that people need to have faith that it's possible to have a great relationship with themselves, which means that they're going to have a great relationship with their partner.
that's where it all starts. If you're not good in here,
Yeah.
then your relationship will reflect where you're not good and it will show up. But that's the whole purpose, because it brings to your awareness where you're being triggered, and there's the opportunity for healing and ownership and responsibility for what's that. And it's all coming from your past and your childhood and everything that's happened with your parents and your upbringing. It's all connected to that. So
Yeah.
the opportunities there in every relationship. So even in the relationship that we had before we came together, they were perfect and there was a lot of learning and growth. It just didn't mean that they were lifetime relationships. There's a reason it's season a lifetime. So
Yeah.
And I actually think that's maybe a detriment, that people think they're supposed to meet somebody when they're 19 and spend the rest of their lives with them. And I know that happens, and it can work, and it can, be powerful, but every single person teaches us about ourselves, and we learn more and we learn more. So, if I had a son or a daughter, I'd say, don't rush. Don't go into every relationship thinking they're the one. That's the mistake. Every relationship is on the path to the one,
they are the one.
which is actually you,
Yeah, they are the one for that
in
period.
that
Whatever,
moment.
like my lady from my past life, she was a soul. Because people say, "What about your soulmate?" She was a soulmate. She is a soulmate.
Mhm.
Soulmates come in many forms, and she,
Mhm.
as tough and as challenging as it was, I learned so much, and she got me on the spiritual path, and there was some amazing stuff that happened in there. So it was perfect for that time period that we were together, but it was never ever going to be a lifetime thing. And that's where people,
Yeah.
soulmates come in many forms. Oh, I want my soulmate. Well, our parents, a friend can be a soulmate. In a romantic situation, it's always a soulmate, no matter how long it lasts,
Yeah.
because they've come in. Yeah,
Everyone's a soulmate at varying levels. That's
yeah,
right. So every relationship matters.
yeah.
Even just, you go on one date and you experience yourself on one date, and at the end of the date whether you want to do it again or not. You still learn something by being with that
Right.
person for those number of hours.
You learn that you don't want that in a person that you want to
Yeah.
be with. I don't want that. So what, instead of focusing on what you don't want, so if they were self-centered and narcissistic or whatever, and that's not what you want, so then you go back. So no, I want somebody that is cares about me and asks
Thoughtful.
questions about you and attentive or whatever. So
Yeah.
that's what your relationships are for, about determining
Sure.
what you want and don't want within a relationship.
And I wonder if you, I don't think you have, because you said you really are grounded in who you both are. Are there times, because people come into places in life of like stress. And so do you ever feel like you come close to losing yourself or your identity in a relationship and have to reground yourself, or you just know yourself so well that that never really comes up?
I guess in the early days, you have to learn that. That's something you have to learn through the process,
Right.
because many people, women in particular, totally lose themselves within their relationship and their families, because they become the one that takes care of everybody. They got to get the kids organized and get their lunches or whatever, and so they can lose themselves within the family dynamic, which is not healthy for women, because they're overlooking their own needs and their own nurturing, which can evolve into breast cancer and those kinds of things. So that's a process that you learn and understand. So, when I first came here, I was totally in Rebecca's world. So I was totally reliant on her for where to go, what to do, and to understand and learn. I was totally immersed in Rebecca's world. And so I was learning a whole new way of being and a whole new culture and a whole new country. And basically I was starting my life from scratch financially.
Yeah.
So I kind of had to lose the old aspect of me and reconstruct myself in a more healthy way with Rebecca's support and guidance. But there are times when you have to, when you can lose yourself in the relationship, but then understanding that and then finding out what you need to do to reconnect with yourself is a really important and valuable lessons and within relationship. Yeah.
Okay.
And I have to remind myself of that every day, because I have a crush on Dean. I totally love being with him. He's my favorite person in the world. So I have to remind myself to carve out space, to back off, to go do something else, or it's okay, you can go on your own, because I would always default and always choose to hanging out with Dean. So I'm the one but I have to work on that every day, all the time. It's okay. You can.
Yeah, but that's interesting because that is something that can be always part of a relationship, something that always gets worked on. It's not like you find your person and suddenly that's it, you're done. There's always going to be things that remind you of rekindling your relationship with yourself.
Yeah, we're never done. We wouldn't still be here in the Earth School if we were done.
Yeah.
It's always more to learn. Even
So what's that?
I would just say, even I've had women say to me, oh, it's so wonderful to have found, your true partner and the person that, brings you joy. And they have some expectation that it's over, that it's complete, and that you made it, and you never make it. And it's never, while it's, highly, highly valued and, respected thing, because I feel like I waited till I was 40 to meet, perfect guy for me. But it's never over, because you still have to do the work. You're continually working on yourself, continually nurturing the relationship, you're continually ensuring that you're respecting your partner and making sure that you're creating enough freedom for him to express who he wants to be in life as you do. So it's never over. I think women have some kind of an expectation, like, oh, you found him, you got him, you're home free. No, never over. Yeah, there's always
Yeah,
more.
I think that's a big one for all women. They just want to just stop. They don't
Yes,
want to think about anything anymore.
yes. Because we're so busy at taking care of the whole world, we want somebody.
Yeah, or I think also women are in their head a lot compared to men. So it's almost like compartmentalizing. They just want to like get one part out of the way and move on to the next. So, were you going to say something?
No,
Oh, no.
over to you.
I don't know if I kind of already asked this, but what did you think of love in the beginning of your life, and what do you think of love now?
In the
I don't
beginning,
know.
of life.
Yeah, in the beginning of your journey versus like what you think of love now, having found that person who you feel you've matched with.
That's the good question. I had no idea what love was in my previous life. Even in my relationships, I didn't have a great role model with my parents because of their relationship was very distant, and there was not any affection. There was very little communication. So that's what I saw growing up, as looked at that and says, oh, well, that's what relationships about, because that's what you see. They're the role model. So I had no real understanding of that. In fact, that's what Rebecca did for me, was enabled me to tap into that within myself, which I'd started to do on my own journey, you know, back home. Because when my life basically blew up and everything, the rug was pulled out from underneath me in every aspect of my life at the age of 40. So, you know, my relationship ended at that time. Our family business closed. My identity was gone. My money was gone. I lost everything basically.
You were living in another town, so you lost your hometown.
Yeah. So basically, that
Wow.
opportunity. That's when I decided that I needed to either I'm out of here, you know, I'll do myself in because it was that bad, or I can reinvent myself and find out who I am and what is this thing called love, because I had no idea, because I had no connection to that which is inside of me. So now I understand that the love that I was seeking is actually inside of me. And when you're able to tap into that and express that to another, and likewise, love is a state of being, and it's not about lust or physicality or chemical connect. It's none of that. That's all. That's nothing to do with actually what real love is. And when you can understand that and connect to that inside of you and share that with another who does the same thing, then you get a real understanding experience of what love really is. And love is unconditional. Love is acceptance. Love is kindness. Love is sensitivity. Love is communication. Love is integrity. You know, that's what love is honoring. It's not about the physicality and sex and
Those are great bonuses, but
they're not real of what love. They're just outside experiences that we have physically. But real love, it comes from within, and when you understand that, the exchange that you have, you can't really explain it.
Wow.
It's very difficult to explain, but I had to find it inside myself. And then when you find it inside yourself, you'll find someone that has it within them that you come and connect with and reflect that on each other. And that's where the real love is just in allowing Beck to be who she is, and she allowing me to be who I am, and we come together in that, and we're compatible, and we share that energy with each other without even thinking about it, if you know what I mean.
How do you tell the difference between, because there are people where sexuality is a huge part of their life, and I can understand for some people like it's just really important to them. So how do you differentiate between when that's something of value to someone versus something that is creating kind of superficialness in a relationship? I don't know if I'm asking that right.
I know what you mean, though. I don't know how to answer it.
Well, I mean, the sexual relations is important in that connection, but you're not basing the foundation of your relationship, which a lot of guys will do. They'll demand or want certain, you know, physical connection and intimacy, and if they're not getting it, they're not happy. And it's not like, um, you know, the dynamic between that and the other person is different in each situation. But when you come from a place of real love, the sexual intimacy and that is a bonus, and it's like you're not reliant on that, and it's a beautiful thing when it comes to that. But it's not like we're not having this, then
Right,
don't love me. Why? What do you know?
right.
It's a
It's
difficult
not
one
at
to
the
explain.
center anymore.
No, it's
It's
not the
not at the
center.
center.
And from a guy like, you know, it was in my early days when I was, you know, discovering, but now it's not the center of what I require in a relationship. It's there when you not need it, but when the desire is there, but it's not something that I live for or have to have. You know, it just is a natural organic flow within the relationship, which is how I think is a more healthy approach. Maybe not for her, I don't know.
No, I think I think you've articulated it really well. I think there's way too much overstimulation in our society and in an expectation. You know, I think we're overstimulated sexually. But it's the same thing, you know, we talk about, you know, whether it's food or whether it's addiction, you know, addiction to, you know, visual addiction of having to see, you know, movies. And, you know, we get attached to all these things to somehow satisfy our sensual desires, you know, whether it's sight, hearing, taste, you know, touch. And the more we can get those in balance, the more, again, that inner presence, our inner landscape, our inner world can come to fruition, can be expressed. In other words, we're not just attached to a whole bunch of stuff on the outside that keeps us addicted, and if we don't get
Yeah.
that, we can't feel ourselves. I think we're way overstimulated in the world with all of
And
those things.
and that's all temporary. All those things are temporary stimulus and that satisfies us, but it's temporary.
And it's external.
It's
to us.
external. When you come from that inner place of knowing who you are and connected to the presence and essence of love that you are, it's eternal, and there's no other attachments to it. They're kind of a not a bonus. They're kind of a something that when you're coming from a place of not needing it, but it happens organically, it's a lot healthier.
It's
I
healthier
guess.
and it's kind of more beautiful because you just get completely satisfied by looking at a beautiful flower or watching a bird or hearing, you know, like the simple things then are so loud and beautiful. We don't actually have to go and seek it. It's all there, and it's all always been there. We've just missed the subtlety of it. So I think that it's like the sensuality of all the subtleties become more powerful. You know, when you have a piece of cheesecake and it just tastes so amazing, whatever.
I'm not sure a lot of men would understand the cheesecake analogy.
That's right.
But like, if you can give advice to couples out there that, you know, for a lot of men, because I hear this sometimes, like, you know, if they don't get it like 10 times a week, I don't know what the number is, but, and I totally understand what you guys are saying, but I just wonder for people who are very connected to sex and where that's extremely important to them, you know, how do you go about, how do you approach that? What kind of advice would you say to kind of open them to what you're saying, to understanding that when it happens organically, it kind of comes from a place of love and not lust?
Yeah, that's a tough one because, you know, a lot of our behaviors and our patterns in life are addictions. They're addictive. We're addicted to people. We're addicted to can be, you know, as we know, alcohol, drugs. It can be sex. It can be many things. So an addiction to something that I have to have it is just a representation where they're missing something inside themselves and they're trying to fill a hole through that addiction, whether it's sex or whatever. So when you're coming from that place, it cannot last, particularly you know, if the partner's not coming from the same place and feeling pressured all the time and feeling this addictive behavior from their partner. It's going to wear down, it's going to cause problems. So you've got to be willing to look at what it's showing you, or what hole you're trying to fill inside yourself. Not to say sex is bad, it's not, but if you're addicted to it, or if you're addicted to food, or if you're addicted to drugs or alcohol, it's
So how can you tell if you're addicted or not? Like, how can you tell if it's an addiction? Or maybe that's out of your realm, because
Because you have to have it.
you have to have it.
And you'll do anything to get it.
right,
You're attached to it.
right.
Right. So, you know,
And that's all you think about.
and but you think about, okay, what does the value of the addiction do to me? Often it's because you're just trying to fill up something in the moment, or people who even say, actually, I love sex because in that, climax moment, I'm not thinking about anything else. That all the woes and the weight of the world falls from me. I'm not aware of anything else other than, myself, and there's a great relief in that, right? Someone could say the same about taking a drink, or smoking pot or whatever. But it's like, what if you could, if you stopped for a minute and you could and that hole could be filled up, that you could be um, in a feeling of bliss in every moment, would you take that journey, right? So it's
Mhm.
like, rather than having the momentary flash of freedom, which it gives,
Right.
would you be willing to take a journey that gave you a sense of peace and balance and connection and presence and peace, let's just call it peace, in every moment, which is building your inner landscape, right? Which
Yeah.
is, learning to meditate so that you get comfortable inside your skin, learning
Mhm.
to create, have a connection with yourself as a more magnificent expression than what you think. That if you're connected in a higher way, if you so there, in other words, what I'm saying is, by our experience, there's a way to fill yourself up from the inside out so that you don't need the outside to fill you up.
And what would you say, like, in terms of sexual compatibility, does that take a role in a
I
healthy, in a connection
Oh,
that,
yeah,
sure.
the chemistry's got to
yeah.
be there. The
Yeah.
chemistry, you've got to have that chemistry. If the chemistry's not there, you've got a problem straight away.
Yeah. It's a
And
sign.
as and aside from the chemistry in terms of compatibility, because there are people who might need it more often or might have a different approach to it, are those important too? Like, or do you think that that's something that, I mean, I think it is important, but do you think that that's something that can, I guess, that gets in the way for people? Or do you think that does come down to compatibility?
Well, to me, it's like you got to find the balance. You got to find the balance. It's like with us,
Mhm.
we found balance, and what I needed to bring more out of myself,
Mhm.
and what Beck needed to bring more for us to find that balance, but also where I needed to clear and heal old wounds and old stuff that weren't serving me any longer. I needed to work on that, letting that go. So it's always about finding a balance that works for both parties. But
But
um,
if they can't find it, I would say that's a crack in the relationship. A crack that can become a chasm fast.
and it's important for people to understand that why while we may be talking about this in our journey, it's a long journey. It's no overnight fix. This is a lifetime journey we're on, and this just
Mhm.
doesn't happen. We've been together, what, 22 years or something.
Wow.
We still work on it. We still work on it, but we're aware and we're committed, and we are embracing that because we know it's helping us continue to be better and evolve and understand ourselves more. So
And sometimes, it takes great courage to recognize that a relationship is no longer serving you. Takes
Yeah.
big, big courage. And then the decisions you have to make as a result of that, to honor that person and to not create a path of devastation behind you, but what we can say for sure is that we were in deep, committed long-term relationships that we both
Mhm.
had to make the choice to end, based on following our own instincts. It was like we just had to go with how we felt inside. And it's almost like you have to take the chance, you have to be willing to have the courage to take the chance that something can be better for you. And that we can say for sure, because what happened for both of us is that it is worth it. If you're in a relationship that it just and you're doing everything you can personally within yourself to change and grow and communicate and be honest and do all the right things, and it still is broken and it still isn't going anywhere and your partner still doesn't get it, then it's time to
Right.
lovingly and maturely, make a decision to move on. That takes a heck of a lot of courage, because that's what happened to me. I was in what everyone thought I was crazy, because they said, well, how, everybody else is looking at you, think like you have everything. But
Yeah.
on the outside, but I was lonely in my relationship. And I knew for sure the minute I left and I was living on my own, living as a single woman, I was less lonely and I was alone. I felt lonely in my relationship because he wasn't communicating with me. And I'd been asking and asking and asking for years, and he wasn't able to give me what I was asking for. So I had to go. And yet it broke my heart. But I'm so glad that I did. And I invested the years in myself in order to find a relationship. Now I have someone who will talk to me.
And I'll just ask one more thing. What was that one first step you took for yourself to invest in yourself that brought you to having more of a connection to yourself and separating yourself from that past relationship? Like, what would you say was the first initial step that you took? Was it going on vacation? Was it reading a book? Or
Well, for me, it was was two things, but it was taking yoga so that I was moving my body and processing deep, entrenched emotions that was locked in my body. Because I'd go to yoga class and cry the whole time. And I remember her, she'd say, okay, we're doing the warrior pose. And I'd be like, please don't make me do the warrior pose, because some poses was bringing out this strength and this, the courage that I knew was going to stir.
wow,
Okay, you can't do the warrior pose and avoid
wow.
being a warrior in your life. The other thing was taking meditation classes so that I was learning how to go within and be at peace within, and to realize that there's something in there to find when you shut your mind down. So for me, the two things were really, really important. And it was me making a choice to take a class for myself, to get myself there, and to allow myself to change however that was going to change me. And both were profound.
That's so amazing.
That
Because
was
it
beginning.
does take a lot of courage. I think a lot of people can't step away. So
Well, it took her 5 years from the time she knew that it was right before she could make that decision. So there's no
Took a long time.
right or wrong in any of this relationship stuff. It's what it is for you,
mhm.
how it impacts you, and what's there in your relationship at this time for you to learn and grow. And where it goes to from there, we don't know. But the bottom line is, if you're not happy, if you're not happy in a relationship, the first place to look is inside yourself to find out why you're not happy and what it's missing, and then to fill that void and give yourself what it is that you're not getting from your relationship. And then it'll either kind of sort itself out and that will start to come to you because you've given it to yourself, or it won't. And in that moment, you'll know it's time to go. And how long that takes you to get that organized, there's no rules, or it
Yeah.
is what it is.
Everybody has their own time.
Exactly.
I'm so grateful that you guys came together to share this, because it means so much to me. And I feel like there's so much more that I want to get into, and also like how you created Heartlight, I think that's what it's called, and all of that. I can honestly feel the connection between you. Like there's this fluidity, and like it's this spiritual, I can't quite describe it, but you don't come across it all the time. So I was telling Dean how excited I was to interview you guys. So again, thank you so much. And I look forward to continuing it.